Eli lived a quiet life on his family ranch, stretched across the wide, golden plains of Arizona. His days were simple, predictable, and lonely, but he had grown used to it. From the first light of dawn, he would rise and check on the cattle, repair fences that the wind had broken, and make sure the water troughs were full. There was a calm rhythm to his life, a sort of peace in the repetition. He didn't need much. The wide open sky, the smell of earth and grass, and the sound of horses' hooves were enough. Eli was known in the nearby town as a quiet man. People nodded when they saw him, sometimes called him polite, sometimes shy, but mostly, he was invisible. He never stayed long in town, only visiting to buy supplies or sell a few cattle. Conversations were short and polite, and he was fine with that. He liked his own company. He liked the world as it was, simple, safe, and slow. That morning, as Eli rode across the plains checking the farthest fences, he noticed a small commotion in the distance near the town. Curious, he slowed his horse and squinted against the morning sun. He saw a crowd gathered, murmuring, pointing, and staring. Something or someone had captured everyone's attention. He was about to turn back when he heard one of the ranchers whisper, "It's a young Apache woman. Came from the reservation to visit family. They say she's a great rider." Eli frowned slightly, a mixture of curiosity and caution stirring inside him. He didn't usually pay attention to strangers. Most people in town were busy with their own lives, and he liked it that way. But something about this news made his heart skip a little. Perhaps it was the way the rancher said her name, Ayana, which meant eternal bloom. He stayed on the ridge above the town, hidden behind a few trees, watching. Ayana had appeared at the center of the crowd, riding a sleek brown horse with a white blaze down its face. Her posture was proud, her back straight, her eyes bright and alert. The horse moved with a smooth confidence, almost as if it had a mind of its own, yet completely controlled by her small hands. She laughed lightly, a sound that carried across the dusty street and made Eli's chest tighten. She spoke to people, shaking hands and greeting the children who ran to her side. There was an ease to her presence, a grace that made even the sun seem dimmer by comparison. Eli felt his chest tighten in a way he hadn't felt for a long time. He looked down at his worn boots, suddenly aware of how plain his life seemed. But more than that, he felt a strange, unfamiliar pull, a desire to know her, to speak with her, to somehow become part of this energy she carried. For the next few hours, Eli watched her from a distance. He rode back to the ranch slowly, his mind full of thoughts he couldn't name. He wondered where she would go, what she would do, and whether she would stay in town long. He couldn't stop thinking about the way she moved on the horse, the confident tilt of her head, the laughter that seemed to linger in the air even after it stopped. The chance to meet her came unexpectedly that very afternoon. Eli was mending a fence near the edge of his property when he heard a sharp cry. Glancing up, he saw a horse bolting across the field, its rider struggling to hold on. Without thinking, Eli grabbed his own horse and galloped toward the scene. By the time he reached her, Ayana's horse had slowed slightly, but she was clearly struggling. Eli reached out and grasped the reins of her horse with a firm, steady hand. The animal calmed immediately, recognizing the steady presence of another rider. "Are you all right?" Eli asked, his voice low, but steady. Ayana looked at him, her dark eyes wide and alert. I'm fine," she said, though a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Thank you. That horse can be spirited." Eli nodded, feeling a flush in his cheeks. "You're welcome. Horses can be unpredictable. Best to always stay calm." There was a pause. An awkward silence filled with the soft sounds of wind moving through the tall grass. Eli realized he didn't know what to say next. Most of the time, he wasn't this nervous with strangers. He wasn't nervous at all. But there was something about Ayanna that made his usual words stumble and falter. "I'm Eli," he said finally, tipping his hat slightly. "Ayanna," she replied, her voice soft but confident. "Thank you again for your help, Eli." He nodded, unsure whether to offer more conversation. Ayanna adjusted her hat and gave a small laugh. "You have a beautiful ranch," she said, glancing around. "It must take a lot of work to keep it this way." Eli looked around, seeing his land through her eyes. He realized he had never thought about it like that. How beautiful the plains were, the way the sunlight painted the fields gold, the way the distant mountains stood firm and quiet. "It does," he said finally. "But it's worth it. The land—" Ayanna smiled. A genuine, warm smile that made Eli feel oddly at ease. "I can see that," she said. "It's peaceful, different from the town." They stood there for a few moments, neither quite knowing how to continue, yet neither wanting the moment to end. Eli felt a spark of connection he hadn't felt in years. It was small, cautious, and uncertain, but it was there. Eventually, Ayanna pulled slightly on her horse's reins. "I should head back," she said. "You too," he said, his voice a little louder than he intended. He watched her ride away, feeling a strange emptiness now that she was gone. For the first time in years, the routine of his life felt incomplete. That evening, Eli sat on the porch of his small ranch house, staring at the horizon as the sun dipped behind the mountains. His thoughts kept returning to Ayanna, the way she had laughed, the way she had moved, the way she had made his quiet world feel suddenly larger. He realized that he didn't just want to know more about her, he wanted to spend time with her, to see the world through her eyes. Yet doubt gnawed at him. She was confident, strong, and from a world he barely knew. He was shy, quiet, and used to being invisible. What could he offer her? What would she see in someone like him? As night fell and stars began to dot the sky, Eli made a small, firm decision. He wouldn't let fear stop him. He would find a way to speak to her again, to learn more about this girl who had suddenly changed the rhythm of his days. He didn't know what the future held. But for the first time, he felt a stirring of excitement, a hope that life could be more than quiet, work, and empty evenings. And somewhere far away, under the same vast sky, Ayanna thought of the quiet cowboy who had helped her that afternoon. She felt a warmth in her chest and a curiosity about the man who was different from everyone else she had ever met. Both of them, in their own way, felt that the world had shifted slightly, and that the meeting of two very different lives could bring something new, something meaningful, into the days ahead. The plains were silent once more, the wind whispering through the grass, carrying with it a promise. Change was coming, and neither Eli nor Ayanna would ever be the same again. The next morning, Eli woke earlier than usual. The memory of Ayanna's laughter and the light in her eyes kept returning to him. He felt restless, as if the plains themselves were calling him to do something different, something more. He fed the cattle, repaired the broken fence along the northern field, and even polished the saddle's tasks he had done countless times before. But his mind was elsewhere. The day stretched before him, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. It was late morning when a familiar sound reached his ears. The soft clatter of hooves on dry earth. Eli looked up and saw Ayanna riding toward the ranch again, her horse moving with the same confident rhythm he had noticed before. His heart jumped, and for a moment, he was frozen. Then, taking a deep breath, he climbed onto his own horse and rode to meet her. "Good morning, Eli," Ayanna called, smiling as she approached. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," he said, his voice a little tighter than usual. "I was just checking the northern fence." "It's fixed now." She nodded. "Good. I was hoping you could help me explore some trails nearby. They're tricky, and I'd feel safer with someone who knows the land." Eli hesitated. He was used to working alone, and guiding someone else through the plains was not something he did often. But the warmth in her eyes and the gentle tone of her request made him nod. They set off together, moving through the wide-open fields. The plains were beautiful that morning, the sunlight casting long shadows over the golden grass. Birds flew overhead, and the air smelled sweet with the scent of wildflowers and earth. Ayanna rode with ease, guiding her horse through narrow paths, over small streams, and around dense patches of sagebrush. Eli followed closely, impressed by her skill. As they rode, Eli started to speak, telling her small stories about the ranch. "This part of the land," he said, pointing toward a gentle hill, "used to be covered in wildflowers when I was a boy. My father taught me how to ride up here and look at the plains. It feels like the whole world is spread out before you." Ayanna listened intently, her eyes bright. "It must be amazing to grow up with this land. You know every path, every tree. I wish I had something like this when I was little." Eli smiled quietly, not used to such interest in his life. Most people in town would nod politely and leave, but she seemed genuinely curious. That made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt before. Hours passed as they rode deeper into the plains. At one point, dark clouds began to gather overhead, and the wind shifted. Ayanna's horse tensed, and Eli noticed her grip on the reins tighten. "We should find shelter," he said. He guided them to a small grove of trees, where the ground was slightly lower and the wind softened. They tied their horses to nearby trees and waited as the first drops of rain began to fall. The storm wasn't heavy, but it was enough to soak them if they stayed outside. Ayanna laughed softly, brushing a wet strand of hair from her face. "I didn't expect this," she said. "I guess I should have checked the weather." "You can't control everything," Eli replied, smiling. "But you can handle it." After way, after way, after way, after way, after way, after way. They sat together under the trees, the rain pattering softly around them. The moment was quiet, filled with the simple sounds of nature. The wind through the leaves, the distant call of a hawk, and the gentle patter of rain. Eli realized he was speaking more freely than he had in years. He told her about his childhood, his favorite places on the ranch, and even his dreams, small ones, like planting more trees or fixing the old barn roof himself. Ayanna listened with genuine interest, asking questions and sharing her own experiences. She told him about her family, the stories passed down from her ancestors, and her love for riding. She spoke of her pride in her heritage and the courage it took to be independent in a world that didn't always understand her. Eli was fascinated. Her life was so different from his, yet he felt a deep connection growing between them. The rain slowed, and the clouds began to part. A rainbow appeared in the distance, stretching across the plains like a promise. Ayanna looked at it with wide eyes. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Eli nodded, feeling something swell in his chest. "It is," he said. "But you make it feel even better." Ayanna looked at him, surprised. She didn't expect him to speak so openly, and the warmth in his words made her heart beat faster. For a moment, they just sat there, looking at the rainbow. The silence comfortable and filled with unspoken understanding. Eventually, they mounted their horses again, riding back toward the ranch. Eli noticed small changes in himself. He laughed more freely, spoke with confidence, and even dared to make a joke about Ayanna racing him to the old oak tree at the edge of the field. She accepted the challenge with a grin, and for the first time in a long while, Eli felt the thrill of playful competition. By the time they returned, the sun was low in the sky, painting the plains with gold and pink hues. Eli led his horse into the stable and helped Ayanna with hers. "You handled yourself well today," he said, his voice sincere. "You too," she replied. "I was nervous at first, but you made it easy." They stood for a moment, neither quite knowing what to say next. The air between them was warm, filled with the trust and connection they had built over a single day. Eli realized he didn't want her to leave, yet he knew she had her own life to return to. "You know," Ayanna said finally, breaking the silence, "I didn't expect to meet someone like you here. Someone quiet, patient, and kind. I feel comfortable around you." Eli's chest tightened. He had never heard words like that directed at him before. "I feel the same," he admitted. "It's nice having someone to talk to who listens." The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the ranch. Ayanna smiled softly. "I should head back soon," she said. "But I hope we can ride again." Eli nodded. "I'd like that," he said, and for the first time, he felt a real hope for the future. Over the next few weeks, Ayanna visited often. Each time, they explored new trails, shared stories, and discovered small joys in each other's company. Eli's shyness faded slowly, replaced by confidence and warmth. He laughed more, spoke more, and even took small risks, like teaching her to ride one of the older, wilder horses on the ranch. She learned quickly, and Eli felt proud not just of her skill, but of the bond growing between them. The town began to notice the pair together. People would nod and smile as they passed, whispering about the quiet cowboy and the spirited Apache woman who had captured his attention. Eli felt a mixture of pride and humility. He wasn't used to being seen like this, yet he enjoyed it. One evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of sunset, Eli and Ayanna stood at the edge of the plains, looking out over the golden grass. The wind blew gently, carrying with it the scent of earth and flowers. Ayanna rested her hand on her horse's mane, looking at Eli with a soft smile. "You've changed," she said quietly. "You seem lighter, happier." Eli looked at her, feeling the truth of her words. "You've changed me," he admitted. "I didn't realize how quiet I was until you came along. Now, I see things differently." Ayanna stepped closer, her eyes meeting his. "I feel the same," she said. "My world is different now, and I think I like it." Eli smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. The plains, once quiet and lonely, now felt alive. The days seemed brighter, the wind sweeter, and even the chores he once thought dull now held a new joy. Ayanna had brought something into his life he hadn't realized he was missing: friendship, trust, laughter, and the hope of something more. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, they stood together, the golden light reflecting in their eyes. The world around them was wide and open, full of possibilities. Eli knew that his life, once so quiet and predictable, had changed forever. He had opened his heart, learned to trust, and discovered a connection that was rare and beautiful. And somewhere deep inside, he understood that this was only the beginning. Ayanna had ridden into his life like a sudden, bright wind, and he was ready to follow it, wherever it might lead. The plains were silent once more, but Eli no longer felt lonely. He had found someone who saw him, someone who inspired him, and the days ahead felt full of promise, adventure, and the quiet, steady joy of two lives slowly becoming one.